So the first 3 years that we are now establishing within a framework of sensing space, which has kind of different layers of activities from very young to university students in different programs, is of course all about being present. It's all about intimacy between yourself, your body and your environment, your physical surroundings, and by that using a lot of, let's say, the more academic thinking that has come from our side back into the programming of sensing space. Like, for instance, the understanding of prepositions in nature in relationship to architecture. So in nature, all prepositions are at hand, and that's why we feel comfortable in nature, because we can locate our body in relationship to where we are, but also as a communication tool to others where we are. So you would say in the forest, by the sea, in the boat, on top of the mountain. You would say all these things, and by that, through language, you would define your own location, but you would also distribute that information to others.
Because I spent some time on what you could call spatial grammar, thinking of that. And in German, there is a particular field called Raumlinguistik, that is kind of space linguistics. And the basic idea is that grammar is a projection of space, and language is a kind of allegory of space.
Well, language is crucial for our ability to understand others. I mean, it's everything. It means almost everything in our interaction with our fellow human beings. Language obviously is not everything a human is made of. We touch each other, we experience things together without words. But language certainly is a crucial element in shaping not only how we express ourselves, but how we also understand the way others think, because we presume they are using a language we can understand.
Of course, language is rich and has lots of concepts and metaphors and abstracts, but one can argue that language is basically a projection into our thinking of spatial relations. And of course, when you talk about spatial relations, then prepositions, or even what prepositions denote, namely directions. So it is, if you just simply, you say to, it's like that. And if you say into, it's like that. And when you say out of, it's from the inside and out. And then, and so on. And then these when I do this movement, and I denote them with prepositions, then of course it shows clearly that our movements, that prepositions are about directions, and that language is developed from that kind of spatial relation of objects. Either they are moving or they are at a standstill. Then it becomes a verb, or a verb for movement, or a verb for standing still. So, and of course, when there is movement, there is always a direction. And you could say our inner thinking, as I try to argue, our images we carry with us of the outer space. Not outer space, but the space around us. Then we carry that within us, and we act in accordance with thinking space. We act in real space.
And the more prepositions we're using in architecture per se, and that's why the art of prepositions is part of architecture, is that the more body locations you can establish in architecture, the more similar it becomes to natural experiences, and the better it influences you as a person. So it's all about gravity, it's all about where you are, how you walk, when you sit, when you lay down, and this intimate relationship between your surroundings and yourself through the prepositions and how we define them. So movement is part of that. Dance, for instance, can be part of that because it has such a clear relationship to how you sensitize your surroundings. Where is your brain? How is the connection between the right side of the brain with the left side of the brain? How do you bring that totality back to yourself? And it sometimes sounds a little like, well, something that would be nice to have.
So in our thinking and our movement everywhere, we have a sense of direction. Even though we don't make it into quantities, they are kind of qualities. They are qualities experienced by being in space. Because we move, I see you, we move around, and wherever we are, we create directions. And I now look at you, and then I'm a bit, that was a bad question, and I look aside because I don't, so our direction, where we put our eyesight, is really very important. And of course in architecture, when you go into a room, where does your eye, on which the object does your eye fall? And what sound is there? So how we are informed directionally in buildings and any space. This is always present in our imaginations as what you can call qualitative vectors. That is non-numeric vectors. But of course, when we measure this 3 meter, this that, then of course the vector is part of a building. But when we think of it, it's kind of undefined.
We don't need it. Completely untrue. We do need it. We need these conscious moments that actually trigger us to think critically, to think positively, and we need these moments for us to thrive in our own lives on an everyday basis. And it's not a luxury, it's a pure necessity.